Hi there, welcome to Watercolour Painting on Fabric. I'm Rebecca with Classic Craft Studio. This is the first in a series of videos on this topic, but today we're going to be covering most of the basics, and yeah, let's dive straight in. So first of all, we're going to talk about our fabric. I am using 100% cotton calico fabric. I have found that the ordinary 100% cotton that I use for my printing and gel plate printing and things doesn't work as well for watercolor paint. It absorbs the paint too quickly and causes things to spread a bit too much. So if you're looking for a tie-dye effect, 100% cotton sheeting, beautiful to use for that. But instead I've got 100% cotton calico that I've washed at the highest temperature my washing machine does, and then I tumble dry it on the highest tumble drying temperature I have in order to shrink it as much as possible and get the fibers to be as closely woven as possible. So this starts off as quite open weave and it becomes a really lovely fabric to work on. Second thing is your work surface. Even though I've got plastic covering mine, I still put a sheet of tissue paper down, and then just a big piece of scrap paper. This I buy on a roll like this from IKEA, and it is so useful. It's super cheap. It's in the kids drawing section. Amazing stuff. You can just use it to cover your surfaces. Right, now I'm going to start off using Liquitex for the first one. I've diluted it in a lot of water, so it's very diluted, and we're going to just do our sky using this. So it's just a spray bottle. Okay, we have to give that a few moments to dry. Just wipe this off. Okay, and then I've got another spray bottle. It's just got plain water in it, so we're going to spritz that on as well. This helps the colours to bleed into the fabric a bit. Right, I'm going to use a hairdryer and blow this. So let me pause the video while I do that. Okay, and then once it's semi-dry, use your iron. Okay, I have drawn these lines on with an iron off marker, so those are going to come off. But I advise just ironing the sky, your background colour. Get it so that you know that it's 100% dry, because this technique involves a lot of drying of your fabric between the steps. So get your iron ready, get your hairdryer ready. You're going to need those. Right, so that should be good. Yeah, so ink dries really quickly. So I advise just when you're putting your colors onto your palette ready to use, just do the colors that you're going to be using immediately. So for now we're going to be doing a green section at the bottom. I'm using olive green light and olive green deep. So get our inks ready. Right. Now, just like you do for watercolor, you're going to wet your area first. And that's why the type of fabric that you use is so important, because if you use a fabric that's too absorbing, that absorbs water too quickly, you're not going to get the effect that you're looking for. So we take a nice flat paintbrush, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, and just paint the shape that you want onto your fabric. Sometimes it's easier to use a slightly bigger paintbrush. And paint your area. I'm just going to do a very simple one today, just to show you. Right, now we take our paint brushes. Again, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, and you just touch your paint, your colors along the shape like that. And then you can take your water and drag your colors along. Okay, we're going to be taking the deeper shades, and again using your water, drag your colours. You can of course spritz your fabric as well if you find that your spots are getting a little bit too deep or the colours too concentrated. And just keep on working your colours into your fabric. Lift it every now and again just to make sure, but be careful that you don't bleed your colours onto your top there. Let's go darker at the bottom here. So you can mix water into your colours, but I suggest doing it in a separate little part of your palette, so you don't dilute the concentration of your main colour too much. That way you can get a lovely blend of shades. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for our lighter green. Just put a touch of water into a side little bubble thing here, and we're going to paint our surface, the top of the hill. So just blend those colours in nicely. Okay, now before we go much further, again we're going to blow dry and then iron it. Right, we get to our trees. So for this one I'm going to use raw sienna. Always make sure your acrylic inks are you shake them very well before you use them. And now we got some burnt sienna. And we'll add a touch of Naples Yellow Deep. Just a tiny bit of that. Right. Also got a pipette here to help us out. Right. Okay. So again, we're just going to go in there with our water and we're going to paint our tree shape. It's got a bit of green in it, but that's alright. Just going to paint the shapes that we want. In my case I'm doing a landscape, obviously. So. Okay, so Now again, this time I'm just going to put a little bit of water on my paintbrush, and I'm just going to touch the colours to the edges. Take our next colour. And a touch of our Naples yellow, just for accent. Right, and then again, we're going to go in with our paintbrush. Let's get the key one. And just blend those colours together, just with plain water. Okay, it's looking nice, but we want a bit more of the deeper colour. So again, I'm just going to make myself a little side part of the palette, or however you say that, and we're just going to go in there with some very watered down colours. That helps to blend them. Okay, and then we take the pure colour, let's just dry that a bit, and just touch that in various spots. At the same time as some water. Right. Okay, that's our first one done. This will make more sense when I get to the embroidery part. Right, we're going to do another tree. So I'm going to do this one a bit darker. So this one's going to be behind the other one. First of all, let's dry this tree and get this one finished. So again, hair dryer, and then we iron it. Okay, so if you're like me and a little bit impatient, you can put a layer of, I've got this ironing cloth thing, it's fantastic, it's so useful. Then I just put down one little sheet of roller towel, my picture, and then roller towel on top. That way, if there's any drips or anything, it's obviously getting absorbed by the roller towel. Because I get a bit impatient, I do obviously dry it as much as possible with the hair dryer, but you get to that point where you just, okay, come on now, it's enough. So then I use the roller towel, or if I have greaseproof paper, that also works perfectly well. The roller towel just helps to absorb anything. But it turns out this time is good. Okay, we're going to do a tree behind. Well, first one. So again, we go in with our water. We just paint our shape that we want. It can be actually a little bit difficult to see where you've painted, but sometimes it's a bit of a surprise. Okay, so this one I'm using the Liquitex Hooker's Green, which is a very strange name. Okay, I'm going to put that on our little paint palette. And then I'm going to be using the same colours that I used for the hill. I'm going to be using those as well. So we can bring those paintbrushes back. Just get rid of the brown ones for now. Okay. Right. So again, for the Hooker's Green, we're going to have a diluted one next to us here. Start with the hooker's green. Okay, so we just touch on the sides of where we can see we've painted. We get rest, we just kind of paint it in the middle there and see what happens. See how much it spreads. Okay, and we can go with a more concentrated colour. Create some depth in our shape. Okay, looks like it's a bit of a weird shaped tree. I know trees come in all shapes and sizes, but let's just fix that quickly. Okay, and then add in some of the dark green that we used, the olive green. Okay, olive green's very dark, so let's just lighten that a bit. And to look like this tree is behind the other tree. So that's why it's so important to dry your one colour and shape perfectly before you start your next one. There is a bit of bleed between those two colours, but we can keep most of that separate. And that just creates a bit of depth in your work. Right, we're going to hairdryer and then iron it. Okay, now we're going to try and replicate the sort of coppery coloured trees that you get here in Europe. And as autumn is just starting, these are starting to go really dark at the moment. I don't normally do this colour tree, but it just feels appropriate for this time of year. So for this one I am using the Muted Violet Liquitex, and we're going to do the same as before. Kind of running out of space on my palette, so I've got the darker colour there, and then I'm just going to drip 2 little drips of water onto that one. Wet my paintbrush, or dampen it. You don't really want it too wet, just a bit damp. And then we just try and see where the sides of our shape are. And just let those colours bleed a little. Okay, and then you're trying to blend these trees together without running the colours into each other too much, which is kind of tricky because they do tend to bleed into each other over here. If that happens, you just got to kind of lean into it, let it happen, but we try and avoid it as much as we can, just by making the edges not as damp as the rest. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to be doing free motion embroidery on top of this. So this is just to give us some sort of guidelines for stitching. So it's burnt umber and no water, no nothing. Okay, so this is just to show you the effect of painting straight acrylic ink onto fabric, and really it's very much like just ordinary fabric paint. Works beautifully. But you can create really fine little designs with this. So I'm not worrying too much because I'm going to be doing free motion embroidery over the top of this. So this is really just for me to have some sort of guidelines for stitching. Because when you're doing free motion embroidery, it's nice to have a colour behind, so you're not too reliant on your thread to colour. And then obviously we can mix our colours together to make different shades of brown for the different trees. So that's our basic watercolour painting on fabric using acrylic ink. You iron this, the acrylic ink should be permanent. It all depends on the washing powder that you're using actually. If you use one that's a strong stain remover, then it's going to remove your stains. But generally speaking, your work is set in your fabric. I usually use mine for pictures and things that go on walls, so they don't get washed as often, but this is permanent. So be careful of getting any onto your clothing or anything, because acrylic ink is permanent. I'm just going to repeat that to make sure you understand. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.